to Pretoria, where the French ambassador to South Africa, that's Elisabeth Barbier, we understand, is briefing the media on the way forward after Friday's terror attacks in Paris. Let's listen in.
4. Freedom and human rights. This act of war is an attack against our values, the values that we share and defend everywhere in the world. To this extent, it is not an attack against France, but against the world we love, a world of tolerance, respect, and diversity. In these past few days, we've received messages of support from all over the world. The South African government stands by us, as I know the South African people does. We are all affected, regardless of our citizenship, our color, our religion. The victims of the Paris attacks came from 19 different countries, and what happened to us last week could happen to anyone tomorrow. But as long as we are united, we are invincible. The solidarity expressed in these dark times is the best answer to these heinous crimes. And in these very sad days, we shall not forget the victims of terrorism elsewhere in the world. Terrorism strikes everywhere, and especially in Africa. Innocent civilians in Kenya, Nigeria, Egypt, but also Turkey, Lebanon over the recent weeks, and so many other places suffer just as much. The mobilization and support that France has received in these past few days is impressive. But this support is not only addressed to us, it is a warm response from the world to all the victims everywhere. Right now, it may seem as if the support is addressed to Paris because it's a cultural and touristic center, an international landmark. But it is actually a message of solidarity to all the victims of these fanatics. We are united. Though France is wounded, France will not yield. We will never surrender, and we will never let terrorists dictate who we are and how we should live. We will fight back. As our president declared yesterday, France will respond with all its might, and its response will be fearless. This is not a conflict of civilizations, because the jihadists don't represent any civilization. This is a war against global terrorism, which is why the response must be global. We have asked the international community to join and fight with us, and we will form a coalition of the willing to destroy Daesh. To this extent, France has already asked for an urgent meeting of the United Nations Security Council. Terrorists may think they can change us, but they are wrong. Our democracy, our country, has defeated enemies that were far more powerful than these assassins. We overcame in the past, and we will overcome once again. Therefore, with extreme vigilance, life will go on. COP21, the world's largest conference ever on environment, will take place as planned at the end of this month. This conference is vital for our planet, and we owe it to ourselves and to the future generations to reach an ambitious agreement in Paris. More than 100 heads of states will gather in France for COP21 in order to save the planet. But because of these attacks, the representatives of the 195 countries who will attend the conference will also carry a message that goes beyond environment. The world stands united and fearless against Daesh. In this spirit, let me remind you that the borders of France are definitely open. They never cease to be. The controls are tightened in order to ensure security, but South Africans are more than welcome to visit France anytime and to show that they, too, are not afraid. Our visa policy concerning South Africa will remain exactly the same, and France welcomes all its visitors with open arms. In the end, terrorists won't destroy the Republic. The Republic will destroy them. I thank you very much.
Okay, we'll now take a few questions. Please.
So from the SABC, I just want to find out, this is not the first time people are concerned that the intelligence services in France didn't do their work. And the last question is around refugees and migrants. People are also worried that there will be a retaliation against refugees, particularly those who come from the African continent and the Middle East. Can you assure the people of the world that this will not happen to the innocent refugees and the innocent migrants?
Okay, another question? Yes.
Marika from Jacaranda FM. Just a question on a personal note, for you guys being here. I see your flags are at half-mast, there's obviously flowers and stuff outside. What was your emotion being here and not at home when you look at the visuals now, people being unified and defined, staying in the streets? And then also, are you concerned that the bombings that are taking place now, even though it happened before, might, cause some rebuttal, that you can see something more extreme coming along afterwards?
Okay, so the first question was about, yes, the failure or supposed failure from the intelligence services to prevent these attacks. Well, I mean, it's always easy to blame intelligence services because, ideally, things like that shouldn't happen. But it's, the size of the attacks and the type, the very organized, very well thought type of attacks, I think made it very difficult to thwart before they happened. Since January, when there was this Charlie Hebdo and then this kosher food shop, etc. I mean, the last big attack in Paris. A lot of efforts have been deployed to for the special services. I mean, for the intelligence services to work more efficiently. Actually, a law has been adopted and passed in Parliament a couple months ago, who enable these services and the security services to be able to have access to the internet, because we all know that nowadays a lot of these preparations go through the internet or cell phones or whatever. So that was the idea of this law, to make things easier for the security services. But now the zero risk doesn't exist, and we see that you can't have one policeman behind every possible terrorist. So we knew in France we've been on very high alert for many months now, with the expectation that something could happen. It may still happen. I mean, if you listen to our authorities, they warn the population that it may another attack like this can happen, but it can happen not only in France. It can happen in many other countries, because there are no boundaries, as we can see. Now the issue of refugee and migrants and the possibility that they could become a target. Of course, when you see the news that we receive that some passport of migrant or refugees or people who asked for asylum somewhere have been used, it's a bit frightening. But at the same time, our authorities have been quite careful to send a message that there mustn't be any amalgam, and that you know, the image of refugees, I mean lawful refugees, must not be impacted by possible use of that status by criminals. I mean, it's there is a clear difference between criminals, terrorists, and refugees. You could also say that the fact that Islam has been used as, you know, their banner, their flag by the terrorists, can also create a backlash against population of Muslim origin, and that is definitely not the case. And over the last few days after the attacks, you've seen many people coming out and saying, you know, Islam is not that, and these actions have not been made in the name of Islam. So one has to be also very careful not to go into amalgams. Now, well, the emotions being in South Africa and watching, you know, things happen from far. Well, I think I can speak also for all my colleagues and all the French community here. I mean, it's, you know, it's very strange and quite terrible, actually. When you watch these things, you are glued on your television, on the internet, on the news, and you see things unfolding from the evening when it happened. And yeah, so it becomes a very emotive situation. But you saw also that in Paris, even at the highest level, our authorities also were very, you know, it was a very hard blow, let's say. And yeah, it's a massacre of this size is something quite difficult to take in. And yeah, but there was also this very strong determination by, you may have seen some witnesses, and then people in the streets coming for, you know, to put a candle here, a flower there, and saying very clearly that for them the most important thing was to resist and to show that, you know, we are not afraid, and that we are not going to lose our spirit, to lose, you know, to abandon the way of life which actually was targeted. There was one last question in this first batch. Will the recent bombing will lead to more attacks? Well, the bombings had started before the attacks. Of course, one can consider that France, I mean, it was stated clearly actually by Daesh that France was targeted because of its actions. But once again, I mean, there is no zero risk, and we have taken a lot, I mean, more measures. We have announced more measures to be able to prevent and to neutralize more, I mean, terrorist cells and the networks. It's very important also to implement cooperation between neighboring countries. Fast information and cooperation is absolutely vital. As you have seen, we've made, I mean, the security forces have made, or the police has made a number of arrests quite soon after the attacks. Well, it's not finished, and we know that there are still cells and people who are running free. But we know that this fight is going to take time. Our determination is very strong, and we need the cooperation of everybody, because all the countries, all the states are a target of Daesh, actually.
Thank you. Is the last one? Yeah. Yes, please. Thank you.
From
Sorry.
Have you taken any precautions or additional precautions in South Africa, per se, as far as your embassy and your embassy personnel is concerned? And second to that, have you discussed the situation with the South African security forces to maybe just see how you can share certain information about the perpetrators, should anything like that come South Africa's way?
Yes, Jean-Jacques.
Ambassador Jean-Jacques Cornish from Eyewitness News and Radio France International. Do you have anything you can expand on in terms of the Security Council meeting that Francis called for? Is there a draft resolution? Could you give us an idea of the gist of that? And is not fighting terrorism, is this not a classical case for NATO intervention? An injury to, an attack on one country is an attack on all, is the basic maximum of NATO. Yet you're talking about the coalition of the willing, which is somewhere down the track from that. It's not the full support that one would expect NATO to give you in a case like this.
Yes.
John Bailey from ETV. Are there any concerns for the well-being of French nationals living in South Africa? Because there have been reports that South Africa might also be a target for any of these attacks in the future.
Thank you. Well, first of all, the precautions in South Africa for the embassy or for the personnel. Yes, in that sense that our authorities have, after the attacks, immediately, asked all our embassies all over the world to be on alert. And so in South Africa, it also means enhancement of the security measures. As you may know, as far as an embassy is concerned, governed by the Vienna conventions, the security is in fact the responsibility of the hosting state. So we've been talking with the South African police through DIRCO, and we've had their support. So we are grateful for that, and also the kind of measure that you can imagine in terms of reinforcing security around our premises and all what can be identified with a link with France. We are in close contact with the French community in Johannesburg, in Cape Town, where you have bigger, concentration, of course, of those. And we have, as you may know as well, we have a consulate in Cape Town and a consulate in Johannesburg. So we are in close contact with the community. Maybe I can answer the last question at the same time. Do we think that French nationals in South Africa are targets? As I said already, there is no zero risk, and any country, can be targeted or used. But as far as I know, we don't have particular, fears on that regard. We count on the South African government to itself be alert, and that's their job. We are, in South Africa. I'm afraid that for the Security Council, it was our president yesterday who mentioned this call that we will make to the Security Council, the UN Security Council. I must say, I don't know if there is a draft already. I suppose some people are working on it, but I can't tell you more about that. But if you are interested, as soon as we know more, we can. Yeah. Now NATO. NATO is, kind of, I shouldn't say that, but it's a kind of antiquated instrument in a way, with the as regards dealing with this kind of non-state actor, let's say. So it's not an aggression, a classical aggression on, from one state against the other, like NATO was built for. So I don't think, I mean, I may be wrong, but I don't think NATO would be the relevant instrument or organization. That's why we go to the Security Council for that, because we care very much for the international order, and that is the dimension we need to give to this fight. Have we talked with the South African security forces to share information? Well, we have, of course, standing cooperation with at this level between our two governments and agencies. If you want to know more, I think you should go to SSA because it's for them to tell you. But we have basically a good cooperation.
Is there a last round of questions? Okay.
The South African government's position is that the Syrian President Assad must remain in power to ensure stability in the country in order to ensure a political solution. That doesn't seem to be the position of France. Is there a likelihood that you're going to change your stance on this?
Well, there are lots of exchanges and debate on that. You may have seen that in Vienna, it was on Saturday, there was a big international meeting on Syria, and there is a lot of agreement between the different international players, but up to the level of what will be the role of Bashar al-Assad. So there is still disagreement there. But what I've noted yesterday in President Hollande's speech, yesterday afternoon, President Hollande addressed a joint assembly of the National Assembly and Senate in Versailles. And he said that Bashar al-Assad is not the solution, but the enemy is Daesh. So I'm not in a position to interpret this kind of statement, but it's there is, I think, a lot of discussion still going on. So the last one?
Very last question.
Yes, you mentioned 19 countries affected in this whole tragedy.
Yeah, nationals.
Yes, in terms of the continent, the African continent, do you have any information which countries?
No, I must say I've not seen a list by nationalities. I know for sure, and you know as well as I do, that South Africa has not been impacted. They were in the victims we saw, because since yesterday you can see the portraits of the different victims, and one very heart-rending was the two Tunisian sisters who were killed. But otherwise, in terms of nationality, precisely, I wouldn't know.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.